roads lead to collaboration. There isn't one entity out there that can do it all. And so I am always looking for community partners all the time, whether it's to help with one of our mobile food pantries or come down to the gym. We have a full-blown gym down there.
Charlie Mike. Yeah. Let's go.
Yo, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of The Charlie Mike Show. As always, I'm your host, Raul, and your co-host, William.
Yo, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back. We are coming to you from the Paraland Podcast Studio just out to Houston, Texas, and it feels amazing to be here. It was nice and cold. Shut the AC off, so we'll see if I can warm up a little bit of coffee.
Yeah, it was all right. It wasn't too cold in here.
Bro, you love it cold. And I want to remind you that the Charlie Mike Show is powered by the Charlie Mike Military Apparel. You can find us at charliemikemilitaryapparel.com. Apparel is spelled, I got to check my notes, Apparel. Every time I go to that site, I have to check on how it's spelled, but that's how it's spelled.
Apparel?
Yeah,
hey,
bro.
You know what the funny thing is? For the longest time, the business was a couple years old, and when I'd write it down on paper, I still had to double check. It just looked funny.
It does. Man, it feels good to be back. What you been up to, brother? Oh, as you take a drink from your Clearly Canadian.
Clearly Canadian. Y'all be sure to check it out. Available at Costco, Kroger's, Walmart, and clearlycanadian.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's been busy, bro.
Yeah,
we've been running and gunning.
It's crazy, we're just finishing up 3 months here, heading our fourth. Oh my God, we're hitting up 4 months.
Yeah,
and things have been growing. If you've been following along with the podcast, we are now the Charlie Mike Show. So we appreciate you guys as we transition over. And it's true, what we have here is a full blown video production, right? We have multiple cameras, lighting, great audio, sound technicians, editing on the back end. And so we are a show where we come to you and we highlight our veteran community and what it's like to Charlie Mike to continue mission. And the last run of guests since we started with consistency has been amazing, man.
Yeah.
And then every time, the video is getting better, and then the guests are just really bringing it, no pressure to you.
No, you know what's funny is that we actually had him on. Oh, excuse me. Go ahead. Introduce.
Yeah. And so today's guest is Mr. John Smith. Yes, that is his real name.
That is.
It's actually John M.F. Smith.
Yeah.
Let him know by his real name. Mr. John and I have been friends now for a couple of years. I met him when I was working at a nonprofit, Impact a Hero. Of course, John works at Combined Arms, powered by the Texas...
Other way around. Texas Veterans Network, powered by Combined Arms.
Yeah, see, of course, I'm not in that field as much, but we've just really hit it off, and I want to give you your light, man. You've been everywhere, doing so many great things for this veteran community, and you see the needs. You help find sources to fill the needs. It really is more than you. I know you have a very strong passion about this community, especially here in Houston, but veterans at the larger scale of what we can do. We did have John on in December, but the video file didn't, I don't know, it was crap. But since then, I wanted to make sure to bring him back on to share some roses with you. So welcome back.
Honestly, thanks for having me back. And y'all have upgraded. Y'all have definitely upgraded. I'm thoroughly impressed, and I couldn't be proud of y'all.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
We appreciate it, man. Thank you. It was, me and William talked about it, man, and we were like, let's go all in and see what happens. And it's coming to life, and
Yep.
it's crazy to be on this side and witnessing, the magic work.
Yeah.
It just goes to prove that you put a bunch of veterans together and shit's gonna happen. It may not be smooth, but it's gonna happen.
That is a fact.
Yeah,
That
and
is a
so
fact.
I do want to cover some more of your story because not everybody knows who you are. So why don't you give us a 10,000-foot view of who is John Smith?
Well, where do we start? Let's see. So I am not a native Texan, so I'll throw that out there first and foremost. But my ex-father-in-law did give me that bumper sticker that I got down here as soon as possible. So I'm originally from upstate New York, small town called Geneva, and it was again, small town, so choices were kind of limited after high school. I had no desire to pursue college at all, and nor did I want to be in the family farming business. And the only other option was that my uncle had our family weld shop, and I was like, I don't want to be a welder. And so I worked at Crossman Air Guns making BB guns. And coincidentally, the year that paintball guns came out was the year that they had a mass layoff. And so the day I got laid off, I received a phone call from the Marine Corps recruiter. I was like, man, impeccable timing. On top of that, my fiance at the time just, was pregnant with our oldest. And of course, on my head, I was like, man, guaranteed pay, guaranteed housing, insurance, and adventure of a lifetime. I was like, sign me up, sign me up. So I did. I joined the Marine Corps in '99. So obviously it was during peacetime. And then it was also during that whole transition time of going from our old camis to the new digital ones. So that was a bit of an adventure there. But man, I would never turn it back again. I would travel down the same road. I would have all the same trials and tribulations because joining the Marine Corps was ultimately probably one of the best things I've ever done for my life, 100%. So joining in '99, of course, I was stationed at New River. And, well, prior to that, I always like to tell a lot of Marines also deal with what we call the big green weenie, and it's when the Marine Corps shows you love that you don't want to have. And so I actually went to school for crew chief, and I was dead set on it. We, went through boot camp, School of Infantry, up to Maine for SEER training, down to Pensacola, where they just ran you every day, swimming every day. And we're about 2 weeks out from graduation. Top comes in and says, M through Z, follow me. And I got retreaded to be in airframes, which was kind of funny because when I got to my first duty station, they said, oh, you're going to be our welder. And they sent me to welding school. The one thing that I didn't want to do, but now I love it. I love welding. I do it on the side for myself. And so, I became the certifying official welder for down in New River, and then again when I was stationed up in Philly. But in between there, 2001 happened, and never forget that. It was kind of crazy. We were all working in the shop, and we listened to Howard Stern. It was the first time I've heard Howard Stern curse on the radio, and it was eerie. It was a very eerie feeling because you go from hearing, grinders going on and all these pneumatic tools to dead silence, and everybody around the radio almost felt like, 50 styles when everybody was hovering around the radio to hear the upcoming news, and there we were. It's just like, now what? And then, of course, the Marines in us are like, let's go right now. Let's go figure out who did this. And so, of course, when the opportunity arose, I was, send me, I want to go. And so I did. I deployed in 2003.
Wow.
And I was part of the initial invasion into Iraq. So a lot different, obviously now, or even 5 years from that time, getting that initial deployment in there. And it was hard. It was hard. Saw a lot of nasty things. A lot of trials and tribulations over there during that time. And then, unfortunately, we had taken over Safawan Hill, and we were doing patrol, and that's when we were doing perimeter patrol, and a goat, of all things, detonated an IED. So luckily it was a goat and not one of us. However, I was front left, and so I was the closest. And so that's where, the big explosion knocked me out. Got a big old bump in the back of the head still, got some scars and whatnot. And I still remember my sergeant coming over because I was covered in blood. And they thought it was mine, but it was obviously the goat that had exploded. And, when I came to, I was just so dazed, confused. And that, that's where the good old tinnitus comes in, because it's like that whole ringing in the ear, and it's like, you're just so discombobulated after going through something like that. And get back to the ship, and they stitched me up. Well, first they flew me to Bahrain, then back to the ship, and then lucky for me, got back to the ship in time for us to leave and then hit Spain. And that was probably one of the best parts of the whole deployment was in Spain. So we were able to decompress there.
So where was this taking place at? Where were you at, like geographically?
In Iraq,
Yeah.
Safwan Hill.
Okay.
So yeah, it was quite an experience.
Yeah. And this is in 2003. Still
2003. So yeah, there was no fob set up or anything like that. You know, we were sleeping on our Humvees, listening to rounds come down range, and you know, it's just one of those weird experiences where you're like, well, if this is my time, this is my time. And obviously, it wasn't any of our times because my unit came back with everybody. So we were very, very grateful with that.
Let's backtrack a little bit. You said you were listening to the Howard Stern show when you heard the news of 9/11.
Yes.
Do you remember what was said and how that did y'all just stop? Did he like break it in or?
No, he literally said, a plane just crashed into the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
And then, half of everybody was like, what, did you hear that? And then everybody kind of stopped and we were listening. And what was it, 10, 15 minutes later, then the second one hit? I mean, we were just floored. And of course, at that time, everything kind of got locked down. And, at that time, I was married, so told the old spouse, I was like, hey, and I was like, you're stuck on base housing. Don't leave,
So you can close your eyes and take yourself right back there.
Oh,
everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because it's not only a time in history, but I mean, it was a monumental time here in America.
Right.
And then especially, we joined the military voluntarily. I joined during peacetime, wasn't expecting anything, but the whole premise of being in the Marine Corps is to train you to be a fighter. Mm-hmm. So what are you seeking? You're seeking a fight. Now we have one. And so that was our motivation. And, every workup that we were able to do, we were doing it. And it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy.
Now, when the IED, when the goat hit the IED, and you were injured, did you get to eat any of that goat?
No. No. I will tell you something that's funny. So on the ship over there, at a certain point, I think it was right before we hit the Strait of Gibraltar, they switched out all of the cow's milk with goat's milk. And I don't know if you've ever had goat's milk, but it is distinctly different. Mm-hmm. And on the ship, I was working night check. So breakfast was like the main course of the day. And man, that goat's milk did not sit well at all.
Yeah.
Because you're expecting a big old glass of cold milk, and no, it's like lukewarm. It was not cold, and it does not taste right. No, it's like, not for me.
Yeah.
Not for me.
And that was before the goat exploded.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was definitely way before.
Can you imagine? So how is your experience with goat milk now? No, just kidding.
No.
I don't even want to look at a goat.
No, sure don't. Now, funny thing is, you already know my favorite restaurant is called Rodeo Goat. So,
Is it?
Yeah.
That's funny.
I like to take a lot of people over there. It's a nice little quaint place, great burgers. But yeah, no, I'd stay away from goats, stay away from goat cheese, goat milk, goat meat, all of it. I don't even.
See, I think I'd be the exact opposite. I would eat every goat I saw for the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying? Everything I got had goat in it. Goat sandwich, goat, everything. But yeah.
So how much longer did you stay in after your injury?
So during that time was the stop loss.
Oh, yeah.
And so.
I'm familiar with that.
Yes, the good old stop loss. And
if you don't know what the stop loss is, tell us what the stop loss is.
So during that time with the stop loss, there was nobody that was allowed to get out. Mm. And so you could voluntarily extend your time, or you get voluntold to extend your time. And so I figured, well, I've been halfway decent, squared away Marine. Every good Marine has a couple page 11s. So, being young and dumb, it happens.
Oh yeah.
And so, no, I was actually on the ship with my career jammer when that word came out, and I said, you know what? Let me go ahead and re-enlist. I said, let's do it. And I was so excited because there was a position available at HMX, which is the Presidential Marine Helicopter Unit. And I had to get some signatures from higher ups so they can authorize me to go there. A couple of page 11s that I had were minor, so it wasn't going to prevent me. And at that time, I was a lot younger, so shape was much better. I was still running a first class PFT, and So they said, yep, we're going to send this off to Quantico, and we'll see what happens and when you get back from the dirt. So I get back from the dirt, obviously, after the explosion and everything, and I finally get up to the career jammer, and staff sergeant's like, hey, we got to talk. And I was like, did I get HMX? And he said, well, no. He goes, actually, your whole reenlistment package got declined. Again, another big green weenie. And I was like, what is going on? How could this get declined? I was like, I have the mall CO signed off on it, the male CO signed off on it. I was like, you said I was good to go. He goes, I've already notified, the commanding officer. He's going to call Quantico to figure out what's going on. And that is when my name has jeopardized me again, because they did not look at the social. They just looked at the name John Smith, and they denied the wrong John Smith. And so we were actually deployed with a unit out of Philadelphia. And he says, well, what was your primary reason for wanting HMX? I was like, it's HMX. I was like, what other reason is there? You're serving, the commander-in-chief. Why would I not want that? And I said, but on top of that, because prior to leaving Iraq, my first ex-wife and I split up. And so she had moved back to New York. And I said, well, being an HMX, I'm a little bit closer to New York, so I can go visit them. And he said, well, hey, the unit that you just deployed with are out of Philadelphia. He goes, they need 2 airframes. What do you think about you going up there? And he goes, and we can send you and somebody else out of your shop up there that's willing to re-enlist. And so there was this guy named Atkins, Joshua Atkins, and him and I were both like, screw it, let's do it. So then we traveled up to Philadelphia together, and then at that time, that's when I realized how ate up Marines are, because I was in New River.
He said it.
New River, Camp Lejeune, Camp Geiger, Camp Johnson, Camp Devil Dog. There's nothing but, well, again, that's why they call it the armpit of America. But, that whole area, you can't go anywhere without seeing a Marine. There's Marines everywhere. And everybody is so by the book. It's rank, name, all of that. I get up to Philadelphia, and I get checked into a Navy unit. And it's Sam, Roger, Phil. And I was like, what?
First name basis.
And of course, at this time, I was an E4, so I was still an NCO, and I was like already pulling out the knife hand, and I had the chief. He's like, you need to rein it back some. He goes, this is a reserve unit with some active duty components to it. He goes, which you happen to be a part of. He goes, this is not like the fleet. I think I was there 3 days before I went back over to the Marine unit, and I was like, I need something else. And they said, well, you got it. You're here. This is your something else. So I stuck with it. And then my last 2 years, I had the opportunity of doing a color guard, funeral detail, and Toys for Tots.
Wow.
So that was, to me, it was worth holding off for 2 years to finally get to that step, because then I was surrounded by Marines all the time, being able to wear our dress blues. But no, a lot of weird, funny stuff when you're a Marine stationed with the Navy, which now I can understand when we have some of the Navy stationed with the Marines. They're kind of like, what's going on here? But by far, the Marines' favorites are always the corpsmen. Always loved our docs. But on top of that, I would definitely say the CBs. Those guys are they're pretty legit themselves. So yeah, after that,
Giving someone else credit, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I will. I absolutely will.
That doesn't sound like a Marine, because Marines say they do it all. They go to war by themselves. They flew themselves.
Well, mind you, this is the 44-year-old me talking, not the 24-year-old me talking.
Good point.
The 24-year-old me would have been like, no, we do it all. We do it all.
So how long total did you serve?
I was in 9 years.
9 years.
Yep.
And so that means you got out, 2008?
2008.
Right?
Yep.
So 2008, totally different time than now, but how was that transition out of service?
It was hard. It was real hard. So by this time, I made the wise Marine move of getting married again as soon as I came back from Iraq.
Oh, yeah.
Are you still married to her?
Married,
No.
baby,
No.
one of those two.
So
I've done that.
Was she a stripper?
no, she was not. No.
I'm just kidding.
obviously there was a lot of hard times in Iraq and everything else, and so kind of fell into a valley. And I unfortunately just reached out for the first thing that showed me any type of attention.
Yeah.
Who happened to be a narcissist. So, that was a decade of my life that was hard. But she was from Texas, and she said, "Look, after this, you're getting out, and we're going to move to Texas." And I didn't argue it. I said, "All right, let's do it." And so I moved down here, and I had no idea. Had no idea what I was coming down to. Had somewhat of a plan. I was going to do underwater welding when I got out. Coincidentally, I was like, because I fell in love with it. I ended up getting my journeyman's license in combination welding while I was in, and I was like, well, let me just pursue this. I have a joy and a knack in it. And so my ex-father-in-law introduced me to somebody who was an underwater welder for many, many years, and he had what's called the frits, the shakes and all of that. And he just told me all these horror stories about being an underwater welder in this area. And it just totally turned me off. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing that at all. And wound up just being a welder for another company. But at that time, again, the only people I knew were her family. So I talked to my ex-father-in-law. I said, I need to talk to some other veterans. Where do I go? And that's when he said, well, you should go out to the VFW. You're a veteran of foreign war, so go down there. And it wasn't, for me, it wasn't the type of support that I needed. Every VFW is different. Every aspect is a little bit different. At that time, it was very drink heavy, be disgruntled type of mindset. And so I kind of fell into that realm, and, they helped me with my alcoholism, helped me being a disgruntled veteran, and I became that disgruntled veteran for a long time, very long time. Of course, in the Marine Corps, they tell you the longer you stay in, the better leadership position you can get. As soon as I got out, I kept hitting that paper ceiling. Well, where's your degree? Where's your degree? It was like, I got a degree in hard knocks. That's what I got. I was like 9 years in the Marine Corps. That's what I've got, and I'm here to lead a team to accomplish a mission. And so I felt deceived, if you will, because I wasn't seeing the opportunities that they said that there was. But at the same time, I wasn't really directed on the right area to search it out either. And I think that's what really kind of pushed me away. And that's, even with what I'm doing now, if you knock on the wrong door and they can't help you, it starts that downward spiral.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't mean that there's nobody out there to help. It just means you knocked on the wrong door. And so that's what ended up happening to me. And so for, I want to say, a good solid 6-7 years, I was pissed off that I even served my country.
Damn.
I ended up going to the VA, loaded me up on 13 different medications. The medications happened to make me gain a lot of weight. I was up to over 300 pounds at one point.
You're a big boy.
And it was heartbreaking. I go from this lean cut Marine to now this overweight, highly dissatisfied with every aspect of his life, trying to figure out what am I doing? What's next? And so the transition was, for me, it was lonely. It was hard. But eventually I got to the point where, there has got to be more to life than being pissed off that I served my country. But again, it's who you surround yourself with, right? Birds of a feather flock together. I was stuck in that one bird of disgruntledness. And so I didn't want to go down that road anymore. And so that's when I started my college career, if you will, and jumped all sorts of different routes because I didn't know. I was like, what do I want to be when I grow up?
What year is this?
Let's see, I started.
So you kind of in 2008. How long did it take you to finally enroll in school?
2015. 2015. So that
Man, so that's a long time of just kind of milling around. Disgruntled.
Yep. And I did, did a weld shop job here, did another contract welding job, then wound up doing, got into inspection work in the refineries. Great money, loved it. However, it happened 2 times where I was leaving a unit and that unit exploded. And in my head, I was like, you know what? I was like, it was worth it in Iraq. It's not worth dying in a refinery for somebody else to get rich. So that was kind of my turning point. It's like, all right, I have the GI Bill. Let me utilize it. Let me go to school. Let me figure out again, what do I want to be as an adult? And that was hard. It was hard going to school because, you just feel like the Adam Sandler, and you're just that adult around a bunch of kids. And it's like, man, like, y'all are so stupid just because you're ignorant. You haven't lived a life yet.
No, I think everybody experienced. Well, the majority of people. So you said you when you got out, you became disgruntled about your service.
Right.
Do you think the majority of veterans experience that little time where they're the same way?
I think it really depends on the support that they do or don't have, 110%. If they're well supported by either family, other veterans, anybody that's already traveled that road, I don't think they're going to fall into that path. The ones that don't have that support will definitely probably feel that for a little while.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because
I think I went down. I think I went down that way as well. With just being like just mad at the world, living up to that dysfunctional veteran type of mentality, which was, I mean, at the time, I guess it fit me because I was drinking and doing all this stuff.
yeah,
But once you get out of that mindset and you start doing different things, it's a better place.
it is.
So for you individuals and veterans that are stuck in that mode, we can do better.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing is realizing, it's okay to be pissed off.
Yeah.
It's not okay to stay pissed off.
Right.
And that's thoroughly it, because I can tell you, even myself and a lot of the Marines, some of the best Marines that I served with come from broken homes, and that's really where that band of brothers and sisters comes in, because it's your new family. So that transition is so hard because it's like you're leaving your family and trying to focus on your personal family and not almost your life family, where you're around these individuals 24/7. And so I would definitely say there was, as many of us face that identity crisis after we get out. It's like, well, who am I? What am I doing now? Because it was funny, because I want to say it was not even 2 weeks after I started terminal leave, I already had Army recruiters at the house. And I'm like, I'm going to re-up and do their warrant officer program, because they had a warrant officer program for Marines to become pilots. And I was like, man, like, this sounds, and at the time, my ex-wife number 2 was like, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're going to give it a year. You're going to try being a civilian and see how it goes. And, it's just different rough patches, because you have this expectation of what civilian life is. And then when you get out, it doesn't meet that expectation anymore. And what you come to realize is, what you've been trained to kind of think, act, and do in the military, nobody's holding civilians accountable to do that. And so now you're surrounded by, what we called in the Marine Corps a bunch of nasties, and it's like, man, like everywhere you turn to. And again, it's because it's a different mentality. Everybody is so selfish, but then in the military, we're taught to be selfless, 110%, like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to, protect my brothers and continue on to that mission. But getting out, people are so selfish. Like, it's their priorities over anybody else's. And that was something that took me a while to overcome. Because, of course, you're used to giving the shirt off your back to now you have to protect the shirt that's on your back.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different mentality.
I hear a lot about, the disgruntled vet and the hard times and the struggles. And I know it's because I'm in the business, but for me, I come back to what it is we talk about here. If you even look at Raul's shirt, you're like, I never lose. Either I win or I learn. Mm-hmm. And then, the Charlie Mike, the disgruntled veteran, like all of the things that we do, it's all about we're in charge of what happens next, being positive, being stuff. And so what I heard for you as well is the circle that you keep around. Was there someone in your circle like cheering you on, like pushing you to be that better? Is that why you went to school?
No, funny enough, my ex-wife, because I loved fabrication, and whenever I would come home, I'd be like, man, like I'm always having to go in and tell these engineers where they're messing up on their drawings. And she's like, well, become an engineer. They make really good money anyways. Her personal intent, make better money for the family. And so I was like, okay, let me go in for that. So actually, during my first semester in school is when we ended up splitting up and going our separate ways. And I got all the way up to calculus 2 and realized that math for Marines had failed me because I could not get past it. And I tried, I gave it 3 shots at that same course. I was like, this isn't for me. And then that's really when I found my first mentor was at Lee College. His name was Ehab Mustafa, and he was a Egyptian, but also a Army veteran. And, he told me about some of the trials and tribulations that he had. And so he brought me on as a student worker at the college, and then I ended up becoming the VA certifying official there at the school, got hired on full time. And he really pushed on how I can relate so well with the veterans coming in that I should look into either being an LPC or doing what's called DAC, drug and alcohol counseling. And so I kind of knew my struggles that I had. I had, a lot of Marine brothers across the nation that were just struggling hard because when we came back, they didn't know what to do with us, right? We were the first ones deployed, so they did probably the worst thing that they could have done. They put us on night check. We came in at 1,500. We were gone by 2,000. You know what happens at 2,100?
She start partying.
You already know what bar has the drink special every single night of the week. So I think that was it wasn't the smartest move that the Marine Corps could have made for us. But on top of that, the whole stigma of, hey, you got to deal with your shit. Like you're not going to come back and talk about it or anything else. You deal with it on your own, which I'm very thankful where it's not that way anymore. Because again, back then you brought up any type of mental health, that could be
Done.
negative for you.
Yeah.
100% negative for you. So Ehab really pushed me to kind of look at, hey man, you can still serve just in a different facet. And so that's what I did. I started, I went there for the drug and alcohol counseling. I went to do my first internship, and it was for group counseling of a bunch of folks that got arrested for DWI that were court ordered to be there. Well, of course, court ordered, nobody wants to be there. And I was like, this isn't the field I'm looking for. I want to be around people that are wanting to get better. And so from that time, I ended up switching over to UHD and went for social work. And then during that time, that's when I found out about Combined Arms and a whole bunch of other organizations. And that was really, to me, the piece that was missing. I would always seek out other veterans. Even in classes, you can tell what other person was a veteran. It was a natural affinity, and we would just sit by each other and pick on all the younger kids. And
Rollo and I had a similar situation. We were over down the street at Torchy's, and somebody had drove up in a Hummer, like a legitimate Hummer,
Like
from
the
the
old-
service.
the old
like,
Humvee.
Oh, no
the old
kidding.
Humvees. It's got like the toggle switch to turn it on. It's got the cable around it with a padlock, but it's got the license plate and the emissions. And we just sat there like, who do you think this person is? And then we found the guy, he had was it a Bronze Star?
A Bronze Star.
And I was like, well, that guy's a veteran. And if you sit back and analyze, you can find out where the veterans are.
Oh, yeah.
We never did find out who the guy was.
No, so he was walking out the door, and I said, hey, man, how much did you pay for it? And he's like, what? I was like, that's not your...
that is a loaded question.
Yeah. I said, that's not your Humvee out there? He's like, no, but I wish it was. I saw it too coming in, and I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
So we kept looking. We never found it. I was curious to how much you paid for it, what was the whole process, because it was inspected. Mm-hmm. And that was a pretty penny to put,
Yeah.
know.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't,
Make it
mean to
street
go,
legal.
I didn't mean to go down that tangent, my
Oh, yeah,
bad.
yeah, my
but I
bad.
was like, you're right. There's certain things that we just do. If you focus on it, you'll find them. Mm-hmm. And so you're telling us the story about being at UHD, finding veterans, and then that's when you got introduced to Combined Arms. About what year was that?
This was in 2019.
Dang.
Yeah. And so I guess let me backtrack just for a second. So I said that my last 2 years I did funeral detail, honor guard, and Toys for Tots. So in 2007, that's when Travis Manion was killed in action. And so if you don't know, he's actually from the Philadelphia area. And so I had the pleasure, I call it the pleasure now, and it's an honor as well, of actually being able to guard Travis Manion before he was buried.
Oh, wow.
And so fast forwarding, of course, that was a big ordeal. And at the time I first met Ryan Manion way back in the day, which is now the chief experience officer of,
His sister, right?
yep, of
sister.
the Travis Manion Foundation. And so I was actually with another veteran in my social work class, and we had to do 10 hours of community service. And they wanted us to do it at the Star of Hope. And so him and I were like, can we do it with a veteran nonprofit? He's like, yeah, absolutely. And so as we were leaving, he said, he goes, I need to introduce you to this guy named Gonzo. He's a Marine like you. He goes, you'll all, enjoy eating some crayons together. And I said, all right, let me, mind you, he was in the Navy. So, and so here comes Gonzo. If you don't know, Gonzo is Luis Gonzalez. So, and at the time he was working for Travis Manion Foundation. And he come up wearing the shirt, Travis Manion Foundation, if not me, then who? And it's giving me chills now talking about it. And I said, what is that? And he's like, it's the organization I work for. I was like, no. I was like, I know the name. I was like, what is the foundation? Because I had no idea that there was even a foundation named after Travis Manion. And so he said, man, he goes, we work on character development and all of this, and started giving me the story of, Travis Manion. And I said, well, let me tell you my connection with Travis Manion. And I just blew the three of us away that there was, a connection there. And that's when Gonzo said, well, if you haven't heard about Travis Manion Foundation, then you haven't heard of Combined Arms. And so April of 2019, that's when I went down. I had to do 10 hours of community service. I knocked it out in 2 days. And I said, I want to stay. I said, because this makes sense. Because there was never a network of nonprofits. And at this time, it was still in its infantile stages. And so there wasn't a lot of organizations, but the people that I was meeting and their mission and their drive, it just motivated me, and it motivated me. And it really turned on that inquisitive mind of what else is out there, what else is out there, what else is out there. And then, moving to forward, I've been with them since 2019, literally started off as a volunteer, was an intake specialist, turned into, the Houston coordinator, to now I'm the Southeast Texas regional manager. And so, it is
Assistant to the Southeast regional manager.
Is that from Office?
Yeah, that's from Office.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I remember. I remember you telling me, going from Houston, but like, man, I own the Southeast region, and it's like, so what is the Southeast region?
Man, so the Southeast region is compiled of 26 counties, and so and the biggest thing out there is not only trying to find those best-in-class nonprofits, but really informing people what's out there. We still get it now. People hear the name arms, and they're like, oh, it's weapons, and no, it's not. It's not weapons. So if you guys don't know, Combined Arms was actually a Marine Corps exercise that we did coincidentally prior to the invasion of Iraq. But we would bring in all the American forces and some of our allies to train for desert warfare. Iraq, Afghanistan. And really that's, that name kind of stuck, especially with our founder. It's like, oh, that makes sense. Combined Arms, it's bringing everybody together for one mission. And unfortunately, the name does kind of make people question. However, it's what we're trying to do, what our mission is, and it's really using technology to ensure people are knocking on that right door, navigating to that right resource. Because nowadays, I can tell you, you Google search veteran transition or assistance for veterans, you're going to get pages and pages and pages of different results. But are they legit? And that's a major factor that I've realized over time, being with a nonprofit, because of course, first nonprofit I've ever worked at. And so working with a nonprofit, the business modality is way different than a for-profit. And so you want to make sure you're staying within your own lines, because I'm like, no, let's just make it happen. Like it doesn't work that way. You know, there's grants are restricting, this is restricting, that's restricting. And so with us growing the network, for me, that's when it really opened up my eyes that not every organization is cut from the same loin. You know, we do a due diligence on our organizations, and that's when we were reviewing their financials. You know, and I'll look at some of these 990s, and most of the money is going towards their pay and very little towards their program. And I was like, so what exactly are you doing? You know, you're not really serving the veteran. You're using this as a business to line your pockets. And so I'm very wary of, you know, different nonprofits, and that's why that discovery call is so important for us, you know, especially with what I'm doing now.
It's crazy that you say that, because when we started this podcast, we wanted to do something similar, or we didn't want to have nonprofits on here that were doing that exact same thing, like lining their pockets and things. So we would do a deep dive and research and figure out, you know, okay, where's the money going? But it's not questions that we would ask, because if we knew already, we were like, okay, this, you know, you're not worth our time, you know. And it's not something that I'm going to say, hey, my brother, go check this place out because I believe in it.
Right.
No, because I know where you're. And people ask, where do you want me to donate money to? Don't donate it here.
Right.
Yeah. So that's awesome.
It's difficult. And so you guys started here in Houston, right? I'm talking about Combined Arms overall. Started in Houston. You know, can you tell us a little bit about that journey to make Texas interconnected?
Yeah. So, like I said, we started here in Houston. I really like telling the story of, you know, how our CEO or our former CEO even came up with it. So he was going to Texas A&M, and he did his capstone project looking at the state of California and the state of Texas, and how so many veteran service organizations were fragmented and siloed. Everybody was trying to, you know, grab onto a veteran and supply as much services as possible. Well, the thing is if you have way too many, then you have quantity over quality.
Yeah.
And so, you know, even from the invasion of Iraq to present, there have been a lot of nonprofits that started and failed and started and failed. And, you know, one of the biggest ones, which I will tell you is funny because the first time I saw them was on the back of a ketchup bottle, was the Wounded Warrior Project. You know, and of course, you know, what was it, 6-7 years ago, they had some of their own little financial issues. But one of the things that I can say about Wounded Warrior Project is, yes, they supply a lot of great resources. But on top of that, they've realized that they've gotten so big that they're able to fund other nonprofits for them to continue their mission as well. And so when he started Combined Arms, again, common story, a couple Marines walk into a bar and a great idea was created, and that's where Combined Arms was created. And it was telling organizations, stick to your niche. If it falls outside your niche, let's refer them to somebody else that's already a part of the network. That way we can ensure that they're getting the help they need. And so when I came on in 2019, the MOU was very bare bones, very basic.
What's an MOU?
So MOU is a memorandum of understanding. So it's almost like a contract, if you will. And it's more or less just holding folks accountable. And so with the MOU, it just said that we'll get back to the veteran within a timely manner. There was no set time. And so when I got officially hired on, that was one of the things that I helped with, was reaching out to these organizations and be like, hey, I'm a Marine, first and foremost. I was like, so I don't like asking for help, let alone do I want to wait and twiddle my thumbs to find out if you're able to help. Because some of these response times were 150 hours, 200 hours. You know, that's a long time to be contemplating and worrying, are they going to be able to help me? Is somebody going to reach out? Something else to that matter. And so really encourage these organizations to reach out. And so they did. I was watching the time slowly go down, and it was hovering around the 70-hour mark. So we implemented a 96-hour response time. And to me, I don't know, overachiever or whatever it may be, I was like, no, that's still not good. And so I kept being that thorn in these organizations' side. I was like, y'all can do better. Like, it's just an email. Hey, we got your referral. Let's this is the next step. And so after consistently pushing and pushing and pushing, response times were hovering around the 50-hour. And so at that point, we changed it to 72-hour response time. And 72 hours to me is the ideal time. That's 3 days. And mind you, we're still working class, right? So if we have a 3-day weekend, I can't expect somebody to answer that on their day off, or even just a weekend alone. So that 72 hours works. Now we're averaging right around 20 hours, which is phenomenal because that's the organizations reaching out, doing their part. So come 2020, well, let me back up. So one of the things that we had to really overcome, which is, it's still a battle in some areas, is what our former CEO would say is the egos and logos. One of the phrases that I despise hearing is my veteran, right? I got my DD-214. Nobody owns me anymore, right? You can supply service to a veteran. You can support that veteran. Don't call them your veteran. And it's because these organizations want to say, yes, I did this and this and this and this for them. But how good was that service? Now, if you can do, let's just say financial education. If that's your go-to, then stick with it. Don't try to offer home buying skills or this or that. Stick to financial education as a whole. Or if it's mental wellness, let's focus on mental wellness. If it's outdoor therapy, whatever it may be, stick to your niche. Now, many organizations obviously offer a multitude of different resources, and they're great resources. We just want to ensure that they aren't trying to spread it too thin where that quality is not there anymore. And so in 2020, well, a little before 2020, we were looking at the state, Texas Veterans Commission. They refer to themselves as a bowling alley, 8 lanes of service. It's great, but they had no technology to refer to each department. It was just usually, as I still call it, the good old boy program. Hold on, I got a guy. Let me call him real quick. We can make this happen. And that doesn't always work because then there's no accountability in it. And so we introduced our technology to them, and they were just absolutely thrilled with it. And then in 2020, the Texas Workforce Commission came out with a grant called the Texas Veterans Network. And we were co-awardees for this grant. And so the other entity that was awarded was an organization called ACOG out of San Antonio. And so the grant was equally split monetarily wise, but as region-wise, it was not. So there's 254 counties in the state of Texas. We were awarded 219 out of those 254. So we had a lot more area to cover, especially the rural areas, because again, getting the word out, people only know what they know. And so fast forward to April of this year, we were awarded the Texas Veterans Network grant again as the sole provider. And so essentially what we've done is been able to make Texas the first interconnected state for veteran resources. And really ever since that, a lot of other states have looked at us and be like, how can we emulate this? And that's what we're here to do. We're not looking to go to any other state and create a combined arms there. We have the technology, we have the methodology and the ideology. We want to train the people that already live there on how to do it themselves. And so that's what we're doing with our expansion partners now. And so with that, we've been able to bring on Louisiana, South Carolina, and we have like 15 other states that we're working with right now because they have that strong desire to make it simple to find the resources that we need. Because again, like I said, you can Google search. Again, you're not going to know if they're legit or not.
Right. Yeah.
So. And that's pretty cool. And so, for you out there, if you're just listening and you don't know, how do they get in contact with you guys if they're looking for services?
So there's 3 main ways that somebody can get connected. They can self-drive. I don't like saying it's like a shopping experience, but that's the easiest thing I can really compare it to. You go in, create a profile, and they're going to see resources that are applicable to them based off of the algorithms that our tech team has created. So based off of your region, so your region being your county, based off of your era of service. There's a lot of organizations that only serve post 9/11. And then also based off of gender. There's a lot of organizations that are, female specific or they're male specific. And so with that, what that essentially does is make it easier to navigate to the right door to knock on. And so they can go to combinearms.us, And up in the right-hand corner, you can create a profile, get connected, or they can call our intake teams. We have 2 intake teams, one here in Houston and one out in Dallas. And, they can talk with one of our intake specialists. And then during that time, they're going to get what we call a biopsychosocial evaluation. The bio, do you have a roof over your head? Do you have food in your stomach? Utilities paid? The psycho is inquiring about their mental health. There's such a stigma around mental health. Whether, people want to accept it or not, there is still, it's almost a self-doubt within themselves of having, mental health issues or needing just a little bit of support. And then the last aspect is support. Do you have support at home, and are you being a recluse? Because a lot of times, because I know what my experiences are like, and I've talked to so many other veterans, is that it is easy for us to kind of avoid the world, recluse, get into our own little bubble, and just avoid everything else. Well, avoidance is not going to make you grow.
Right.
All it's going to do is shove it off to the side. You're going to
Compartmentalize?
Yes. You're going to
Gotcha.
stick it in a box and put it on the shelf and hope it gets better, but it doesn't because, you have to address the issues.
Yeah.
And so then the third way is what we call community connector. And so these are not only the nonprofits that are out there, but, there's hard-charging advocates that are out there that can simply open up the app on their phone and make a referral on their behalf. So those are the 3 main ways that they can get connected.
That's pretty cool. Like I said, I used to work at a nonprofit, and I used to be connected down there with the Combined Arms, and you guys are doing a dang good job with all the other resources too that you have. We see all out there, but I wanted to save some time because I wanted to ask: do you have any questions for us on the other side of this, right? On what we do that we could probably ask that you've been curious about, that maybe problems that you need solved, or any veteran issues that you've seen, like what's another way that we can get this done? Do you have any questions for Raul and I?
Not questions, man. It's more praise because it's all about awareness, and that's really what you're bringing. And if folks don't know that there's other veterans out there that have struggled with those same struggles or are lost on where do I turn to, who's able to help with this, as you both can tell, a lot of veterans make great entrepreneurs, great entrepreneurs. Where do they get started? And so essentially it's just spreading the word that, hey, you're not alone. Yes, you went through the military, whether it was 4 years or 34 years. You have a special set of skills that can be applied to so many different aspects of your life. And to remember that the time in your military was just that time in your life. Take the positives, leave the negatives, but write your next chapter. When we're in the military, they write the chapter for us. When we're out of the military, we have to write that next chapter. And so that can be intimidating for some because they're not sure how to write that chapter. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've got it all figured out. I definitely don't. Definitely realize that I have my peaks and valleys of times. And but it's having that awareness and knowing that, if need be, I call on William, and be like, hey, man, it's been one of those days. And, it's as much as you want to be positive all the time, it's also having that realistic mindset.
Yeah.
And so I say for that, man, y'all are crushing at getting the word out there because that's really what's essential.
It's an honor to hear, man. It really is, especially coming from someone like yourself. It's working.
yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah,
And
thank
so,
you.
So they can get in touch with Combined Arms at combinedarms.us. And so my last 2 things. So how can somebody follow along with you, John? Like they want to know what is John up to specifically, what is the area up to, how do they get in contact, how do they stay in touch with the events? How do they, you lost a headphone there.
We got some technical issues.
You stay in contact with John.
Well, I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn, of course, but we send out newsletters always. Going back to what our mantra is that all roads lead to collaboration. There isn't one entity out there that can do it all, and so I am always looking for community partners all the time, whether it's to help with one of our mobile food pantries or come down to the gym. We have a full-blown gym down there. So, but as far as me, you can definitely get connected with me through LinkedIn and Facebook. And then directly, if you want to, it's jsmith@combinedarms.us. And they can email me directly.
Word on. And then my last question is Charlie Mike is a term that we use often. It means continue mission. What does that term Charlie Mike mean to you?
Man, that's exactly what it is. It's continuing the mission, but realizing that there's different stages in that mission, right? When you're in the military, you have one mission, and it's okay to define what your mission is, but find a mission. That's the important part, because if you don't have a mission, then you're not going to aspire to anything else. So find out what that mission is, but definitely look for it, seek it out. Whether it's, you found your new mission in a new family or in a new career path, just know that there's still others out there to support in that mission. Because transition isn't just transitioning out of the military, it's transitioning to a new job, living in a new area, in a new relationship. We go through many transitions in life, and it's just knowing where do I find support during those transitions.
That's amazing. That's amazing. John, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for coming today, and man, we're glad we got it all good and going. And man, don't be a stranger. Always gonna come back. Our door is always open for you. If you ever need anything, we're here. So thank you.
Absolutely.
I got nothing else, brother. I appreciate it.
You guys, be sure to follow my man William on all his social media platforms at Mustache Wisdom. That's Facebook, IG, TikTok.
That's right, man. I got them all now.
Yeah.
I got them all.
Y'all be sure to follow him. And if you be sure to check us out at charliemikemilitaryapparel.com. And always thank you to our gracious sponsor, Clearly Canadian. And with that, Charlie Mike.